Hello again. This is Sandra. I've had a couple of videos that I've posted on my channel talking about how my life changed drastically in 90 days. I go into a little bit more detail in those other videos, but today I want to discuss the feeling of vulnerability as I rebuild a life that I hadn't planned on rebuilding. Um, again, I left a corporate job and had been applying online, hoping to get a remote job to work from home. I don't mind being out and about with people, but I really wanted to have a job where I could set my schedule, work the hours that is conducive to my health and my um, energy level and whatnot. And I thought I had lined up a job. Again, briefly, I'll mention it here. I've talked about it before. I thought I lined up an insurance job, selling insurance remotely. Company seemed great. The interview went great. Basically, they just emphasized, because they asked us our concerns. And I said, my concern is I am not a salesperson. I don't want to be selling to people, trying to get them, coerce them into buying something. And they assured me that you're not selling at all. These are warm leads. They filled out cards asking for the information. You're just educating them on the policies, and then they can make an educated educated decision as to what they would want to have for a policy. I go through I had to study to pass the state exam, insurance exam, the state that I live in, and then once I passed that, I just had to apply for the states that I would be calling, or that would be calling to sell the insurance to. So it turned out, after studying, after 2 months, taking the test, passing the test, and I'm proud of myself, passed it in the first try. I've heard it can be very difficult to pass. Then I set the training with the company, and I see from their script and from their training, very nice people that I dealt with, but that what they were promising in the interview was nowhere near what they were promising. The script was very much coercing people, was cornering people into scheduling appointments, and that's when they answered the phone. Turned out that the warm leads that they had were about 3 to 5 years old, which is nothing warm about that. Those are ice cold. And it was part of their acceptance or their membership in a union. So it wasn't something that they really were looking for the information. It was just part of the package, and they just filled out information, and then we were supposed to call them. No one was answering the phones. And then whenever I found out in the training that I took with the company that, you can make up to 200 calls a day or 1,200 calls a week, and you might get maybe 15 appointments scheduled where maybe 8 will show up, and you might sell 3. And I just couldn't do it. First of all, I'm going to waste all that time. But second of all, I didn't like the script and how they wanted us to speak with people. So I was back to square one, and I noticed that the health food store, it's also a grocery store that I shop at every week, for quite some time, they had a help wanted sign in their window. And I said to myself, well, I've never done retail, but it doesn't hurt to ask. So I knew a couple people from shopping there for so long, and I saw one of the gals, and I asked her, I said, I was thinking applying for that. Do you think they would want someone like me who's never done it? And they said, oh, yeah, they're great. They'll show you step by step. They take their time. So long story short, I filled out the application, and within a couple of days, I had an interview. They gave me some scenario situations. What would you do? This, that, and the other. And they said, well, we're going to do a 90-day trial for both of us to see if you like the job or if we feel you're working out. So I started and started gradually, which works for me. I need to kind of digest and marinate on the energy. But because it was so new, and and you would think, well, what's retail? Whoop-de-doo. You just kind of, at the register cashing people out, whatnot. I have never worked on a register. I got plenty of training on it, but there's so many steps to so many things. And ever since COVID, I've had COVID and I think menopause, and I'm sure there's other factors, but I've had brain fog. So I find that when I'm learning something new, and I think part of that is the anxiety of learning something new that I just don't know off in like the back of my hand. So the biggest thing that it was learning the register, and it was counting the money. It was having to determine after the shift ended, when you start out new, I had to balance the register out, and the register that I had, the drawer that I had. And I mean, I would have to sit there and figure out, okay, supposed to have 5 rows of 10 dimes. And if I had 3 rows or I had 2.5, and I go, oh my God, how many I have to figure out to make up the difference? And my brain, I could just freeze in the moment and not be able to just think of something so simple as just adding up. So there was those vulnerabilities. Then very nice people that I work with, but different personalities. We all work with people with different personalities. But when you're learning something new, and I might have a lot of questions. People, I found that they would explain something to me, but they had done the task so many times they'd forget and leave pieces out. And I'm trying to figure it out. And so sometimes I would ask questions, and I'm sure I was internalizing this, but they might just tell me because they might have their own pressures of what they need to get on the shelf, or what they need to, maybe order. And I'm asking a question, and they could be a little short, and they could be really quick. Okay, do this, blah, 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 whatever. So, so I found that I was getting very anxious. I was taking it personally that I was bothering them. And anytime if I did have a question, I'd be like, oh my God, I got to ask them. Oh my God, they're going to hate me. And it wasn't until I heard on YouTube the spiritual teacher. I haven't really worked or studied a lot of her stuff, but I listened to her shorts. She's a Hay House author by the name of Mel Robbins. Excuse me. And she wrote a book called The Let Them Theory. And basically, what it is if you want to change careers and people in your life don't agree, and well, let them not agree. That's fine. And in this situation, I had to apply it that if I ask someone a question, excuse me, and they get agitated, well, let them get agitated. It has nothing, in a sense, nothing to do with me. I had to ask myself, why is it that I can get so terrorized if I have to ask them a question? I mean, I had fear, deep fear. And when I stopped and I asked myself that question, I realized that somehow, some way as a kid, I got the message that it wasn't okay to make a mistake. And I don't remember any circumstances. I think being a very empathic person, I think I empathed from family members, just people close to me, that it wasn't okay to make a mistake, which is crazy because we're human. We're all going to make mistakes. So once I reached that, it was like, it's okay if I don't get something right off the bat. It's okay if I'm cloudy. Don't compare myself to someone else who's starting out and does a really quicker than I am. That's fine. I have my path, I have my journey, as well as other people have their own paths and journeys. So I found that really helped me a lot to get to that point. And then, of course, the more I'm there, the more I'm doing things, and I'm getting used to knowing what I need to do or what's need to be done. So that's happening over time. So I get a little bit more secure in knowing what's expected of me. So, and then another aspect of it was, wasn't there long working on the register, and I got my initiation, I call it, of my first disgruntled customer. And there were many aspects that I didn't know yet. And this woman and I were going back and forth about a particular thing, and I hadn't realized, I didn't know, I learned in that moment. She was trying to use an EBT card, and part of it didn't get covered. And I just thought, oh, well, your card doesn't have the balance. You just have to pay this difference. It was like $13 more. And anyway, we were back and forth on this. And what it turned out was, one of the gals that I worked with, she heard that this woman was getting very disgruntled with me. And she came up and she immediately saw, she said, oh, you bought these 2 teas, which are considered supplements, and EBT doesn't cover supplements. But part of me that I was proud was that I didn't get all flustered. I realized that I was to the point I was going to call the manager when this gal came up to help me, one of my coworkers. So I saw that I can keep my space and my groundedness, and not have to get flustered because the customer was getting all agitated with me. The customer's allowed to get agitated. Let them. I let her get agitated. It had nothing to do with me. And I was rescued, and I learned something. Oh, okay, the EBT card is going to cover things, but it don't cover supplements. And what was a nice thing too to hear was that a gal that I work with the other day told me, she said, I want to say that you have brought a different kind of light, or a light, to the store when you're here. And I think it's because I do keep that centeredness. I don't get agitated with things. In fact, I had a big lesson on how to look at something this past weekend when one of my coworkers, someone who has not a different personality, but can sometimes not always be like, hey, how are you? You know, she can be very kind of grunt. So again, there's a part of me that was in the beginning taking that personally, thinking, oh, I don't think she really likes me well, until I heard one of my other coworkers say that, oh, that's just her. And there's nothing wrong with it. You know, it's just I was interpreting it again to be about me. And it isn't. It's nothing that I need to take personally. So the other day, she was very stressed. She felt behind trying to stock these certain things. And she had given me something to do, and I did it, and I got it completed. And there was a part of me that was like, okay, I'm going to stay away from her for a little while, and I went, no, wait a minute. Why don't I go offer to help her? So I can maybe see if I can ease her load a little bit. And I went to her and I said, is there anything I can help you with? Because you seem really stressed. So is there something I can help you to kind of take away that stress, something off your plate? And her energy completely shifted. She kind of like, it was almost like she took a sigh of relief or whatnot. She actually then said, well, no, actually, I can't take care of everything, but you could move these things to the freezer upstairs. That would help me. I said, okay. And I said, you know, I'm supposed to be on lunch now, but I can have about 30 minutes. and I can take my lunch just 30 minutes later. And she says, nope, stay on the schedule you've been assigned. But her energy completely shifted in that I initially was wanting to stay away from her because, oh God, she's stressing out and I don't want to, I don't ruffle her feathers. But then it hit me, as I said, ask her if she needs help. And her energy completely shifted. She was rushed a little bit later after I got off lunch, but she was more relaxed. So I see how it can help. I didn't have to get anxious. Oh my God, am I gonna get someone angry with me? I didn't have to get anxious about that. And I could just go and say, hey, what can I do to help? And it was, for me anyway, it was a collective feeling of, wow, the energy really shifted a lot. So I'm learning more about me in that I don't have to take things personally. It's okay if I make mistakes. I'm human. I'm learning. And that if someone is stressed out, I can go to them and say, hey, you okay? Do you need some help? What can I do to help you? So there's many factors that I'm learning, and this is just one aspect of rebuilding part of my life. But I wanted to share some of the feelings, as I said, the feelings of vulnerability, not knowing the job as simple as it could be construed to be. Everything was brand new. I mean, even we get a delivery on Mondays of all of our milk products and yogurt products and butter and whatnot. So we're literally in this room that's a refrigerator. So, and I live in a hot climate. It's 105 degrees. So it actually feels kind of nice. But you still have to bundle up. You're in the refrigerator. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the refrigerator for 3 hours. And initially it took an adjustment to be working in that environment. I've noticed my knee would get sore. I think it's the cold that you can get, if you've got knee issues or whatever. So there's been lots of adjustments, and that's fine. I'm realizing it's fine. It's okay as I get more comfortable knowing the job more, knowing what's expected of me. I'll still make mistakes, and I'll still, there'll be things that I'll forget or whatever. But everyone overall is nice. And even if they appear agitated with me, it isn't me. And, and I don't know, one of the spiritual teachers I've listened to before for over a decade, is Matt Kahn. And one of the things that he said, when someone speaks to you a certain way, you never put up with abuse, but if someone speaks to you in a short way or whatnot, well, who in their life spoke to them like that? They're just showing you, giving you a snapshot of how they've been treated in their life. So why do I not then want to just treat them nicer? Because they've probably been not treated so well in their life. So anyway, that's just a little snippet of one little part of my life that I'm rebuilding. And I thought I would share the vulnerabilities and the fears of not knowing and not being comfortable in a position that I'm completely learning new. So if you feel so inspired to leave comments about what maybe you're going through, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to see if this compares, or if other people have other things that when they're learning something new, things that they need to push through. And if you like what you see here, if you're hoping you get something from it, you might want to consider subscribing. My plan is weekly to put out videos to talk about, not always about this journey, about 90 days having to change my life, but just ongoing, to talk about how can we do things differently. The world behaves one way, and to keep our own peace and maybe help make the world a better place. I know it can sound like a cliche, but what can we do that can maybe help the world heal ever so little bit? But thank you for listening. I appreciate you being here, and we'll talk again next week. Thank you.